The nervous system is the information highway of the spirit realm. It is the interstate that connects the physical realm to the spiritual realm. This is why healing your nervous system, hands down, is going to be the most transformative thing on a journey of healing. Let me be clear. Awakening is synonymous with recovery. Those of us who resonate with the term awakening feel as if we're becoming more aware of things that we didn't quite see clearly. We're becoming aware of things we didn't see at all. Awakening means a certain level of observation and the awareness of how it is connecting to you. The purpose of a spiritual awakening is recovery from what we have experienced in this world. Recovery is synonymous with awakening because as you find the tools to support you in recovering, you awaken yourself more, not to the levels of consciousness that feel good. You awaken yourself to the levels of consciousness in which parts of you is still lost. So if you tend to get lost in relationships like I do, it is likely that there are fragments of you still lost in the pattern that developed in those past relationships, which means you don't have access to all of your being. This is what psychology terms as being compartmentalized. So certain aspects of your psyche, certain aspects of your personality, which is the way your psyche shows up in your reality, become fragmented from your conscious self. So you may not be aware that you're clingy. You may not be aware that you're avoidant. You may not be aware that you have a tendency to be codependent and sacrifice your needs for others. You may not know that the reason you avoid conflict is because of traumas that left wounds that have not been healed within you. So you don't feel like you can handle conflict, which leads to avoidance. We don't know these things. We don't know why we're so nice or why we live in a way as if we're always trying to not rock the boat with people. When a part of you is stuck in a pattern from the past, you may even experience physical and psychic fatigue, which leads to self-isolation because you're trying to untether your energy system from what's happening in your reality, not realizing that some of the tethered parts of you is not in the present moment. There are parts of you left in the past, and if I could draw a visual of this would be like a time lapse of a person walking in slow motion, and with each step, the profile of your body gets more and more transparent. And by the time you have taken 20 steps, which could represent 20 years, you become less like your true self, the self that you were born to be prior to developing an ego as a result of conditions you had to go through. So there is a personality that was shaped and conditioned by the world, but there is also a human design within each of us that was determined by the planetary alignment when our soul was incarnating into a physical body to have this life experience. So in doing the Akashic record readings and human design readings, I started to see the connection between recovery from trauma and spiritually awakening. And I realized something that I had never heard anybody else say, which was, if you are aware of traumas and you are in the process of recovering, that means that you're awakening from the simulated illusion that we get stuck in. And that within that illusion, who we are is really just a small aspect of who we really are, because these fragmented parts of ourselves that didn't know how to work through certain intense emotional experiences is still anchored there in that past event. So the access to that past event is not a portal opening up outside of us. It's the portals inside of us, which is within our nervous system, within our meridians. This information is traveling from organ to organ. Within the 72,000 circuits in the human body, this data is constantly streaming and moving throughout the body. So if within your body, 25% of you that went through being betrayed, neglected and lied to and mistreated, if 25% of you was imprinted by that experience, and you develop certain ways of perceiving yourself in an effort to protect yourself from the experience, these could be different coping mechanisms, different addictions that were developed from trying to protect yourself from the experience. That 25% of you, if you have not worked through and gotten to the root of that experience and the way it connects to you, then 25% of you is still stuck in the pattern of that moment. So you will respond in everyday life to things as if you're still in that past moment. So let me give you an example. I believe a lot of men are not honest with their partners, with their wives, because they are afraid of getting in trouble. Now stick with me here, because I know most of us are thinking to ourselves, they are grown men. They don't have a reason to be afraid of getting in trouble. But if that man carries a shame wound of doing something wrong, and if in the past he was criticized, he was judged, maybe even punished for doing something wrong, if that was a past experience that maybe even occurred over the course of years, over and over again, that has embedded itself in his psyche. So his ego says, the last time you got in trouble for this, you got judged for this, we're going to protect ourselves by not telling the whole truth, or not being honest about how we feel, what we said, or what we did. The way that you know this is a subconscious program is due to how fast you go from being triggered in the experience to lying. It's so fast. It's almost like the speed of light. And most of the time, they don't even notice they're lying. You know, another example of this could be feeling ashamed of being perceived as weak. Right? I have that as a woman, and I'm sure that there are others listening to me that resonate. If you feel ashamed of being seen as weak, you will sometimes tell people that you're okay and you're not really okay. That means that you're lying. And if you're lying to them, if you look at the map of consciousness, emotions have a certain frequency that exists within. When we start to lie, on top of that, our nervous system has been triggered, which is what alerted the subconscious mind to pull up our defense mechanism, and the ego just takes over, and before you know it, you like, I'm okay, I'm fine, and you're really not. And sometimes this could be when you're angry and somebody is like, are you mad at me? No, I'm not mad at you. You probably really are. But you may not feel emotionally safe enough to express that you're angry with that person. So it's better to just say, I'm okay, I'm fine, and hide it. And over time, if we don't become aware of these things and find the tools that best suit us to work through them, what happens is we're going through a spiritual awakening, but we're in resistance to the trauma recovery that's occurring. Anytime you are using defense mechanisms, passive aggressiveness, being sarcastic, saying that you're fine and you're not, the silent treatment, like, I've done it all. And I'm still dealing with some of this. This is the reason I'm so passionate about this course, turning pain into purpose, because I'm not someone speaking to you who went to get a degree to help you work through this. I'm you. I'm someone who has worked through much of this and is still working through this, because a spiritual awakening is not a one-time event. It is a lifetime journey that turns into another lifetime and another lifetime, so that your soul can evolve to the level it's meant to. For those of us who identify as being someone who is spiritually awakening, or woke, as they would say, trauma recovery is literally how you ascend. There is no other way. If you are not dealing with your nervous system, the messages that you may or may not be getting from the spirit realm will be confusing, will be mixed up, will not be consistent. You won't be able to make sense of it. And I find when my nervous system is all over the place, I can't drop in. I can't connect. I don't feel grounded. I don't feel like I'm living my life. I almost feel as if I'm living a life that is not my own, that isn't as aligned as I feel it should be. If you're listening to me right now and this is resonating with you, let me know. Do you sometimes feel like you're living a life that isn't aligned with your innermost self? Let me know in the comments. You see, the ascension journey is a journey of alchemy. It is a journey of becoming aware of certain patterns and developing new ones. And though that sounds like a two-step process and it's really simple, there are many, many processes within each process of going through an ascension where you are called to be a cycle breaker. You are healing and you are recovering from things that have been in your bloodline for hundreds of years, if not longer. And you may very well be the first person in your family. I usually find that it's one person per family that really accepts this work of becoming a better version of themselves and actually being dedicated to doing it. What I find is that a calm nervous system is more receptive. The messages are more clear. If we look at society and the information that's being released, the things that we are learning, everywhere that we look, we see dishonesty. Everywhere that we look, we see people that profited off of people's pain. We see people that become rich and remain rich off of profiting on other people's pain. And if the pain isn't already present, we see many things that are creating different issues. And this could be anything from the food system and its connection to disease in the body, or what's happening with the shifts that we're seeing in all of the systems in the world. Everywhere we look, we see dishonesty, pain, suffering, a group being oppressed and a group profiting off of it. To see these things triggers the collective trauma within each of us. And the reason it's triggering that trauma is because we are here on an assignment by our soul to become alchemists, to take the things that once crushed us, to take the things that we sometimes wish we could get rid of, and actually find the diamond once the coal has been processed under pressure. We're here to learn how to navigate pressure, to mitigate pressure, and to migrate into a higher state of being where the pressure no longer affects us in the same way. The pressure no longer breaks us, but the pressure makes us shine. The pressure calls us forward because it catalyzes us to step further into whatever we have been hiding and running from. And that could be so many different things depending on each of us, our human design, our galactic signature, and who our spiritual parents are that were assigned to our soul, which is something that I teach in the Turn Pain into Purpose course, which is really unique to be able to identify who your spiritual parents are assigned to your soul, and to also work through trauma recovery as you are building relationships with deities to support you. This is how I actually became more dedicated to healing my nervous system. I had tried everything, but when I started to try to maintain connection with my I Divine higher self, which is the future evolved version of me that is available to assist me. As I created the Phoenix Rise from the Ashes, this is one of the first courses that I created, using ritual to call this aspect of you into your present moment so that you can see your life through a higher perception. And as I was connecting with her, she told me the biggest blockage between us is your unhealed nervous system. And it was the most astounding thing I had ever heard. And I did not know why no one else had been talking about this. The only people that had come close to expressing this would be Dr. Jewel Pookrum, Dr. Delbert Blair, and maybe I would say somewhat Brother Bobby Hemmett, who talks a lot about deities and their connection with anatomy, the pineal gland and the pituitary gland and things of this nature. As I began really hearing what my I Divine Self had to say to me, I started to scan into my own nervous system to see the accuracy of that. And what I found was anxiety, worry, a fear of something happening, so always needing to be on guard. I found that my nervous system was overwhelmed from me being hypervigilant. At all times, there is hardly not any chill because I'm making sure that I'm safe. I'm scanning my environment. I'm paying attention to people's tones. I'm paying attention to the way people respond to me, the way they look at me. I'm paying attention to the nonverbal communication, which is over 70% of our actual communication. Much of it isn't what we say to one another. It's the nonverbal communication and the micro expressions and the body language and the way that we move that creates energy fields. So as I began paying more attention to these things, I've learned that my nervous system was definitely dysregulated. This was the beginning of me really being able to access the Akashic records in a more significant way, because healing my nervous system gave me access to more Akashic records. 3 very key factors to spirituality that is going to assist you in trauma recovery, but isn't spiritual bypassing. I want you to really pay attention to what I'm saying, because awakenings, spiritual things is becoming trendy, cool, and it's kind of the thing, the new wave, right? It's this era of spirituality, this very Aquarian energy that has come into the planet, and a lot of us are missing the mark. I have missed the mark for a really long time, and I've been so committed to this that I created a spiritual business to assist other people in this ascension journey. And I have a whole channel with over 1,000 videos on there of me doing just that, which has taken a large amount of dedication, discipline, and investment to accomplish. I have now since created a new channel because I'm operating within a new dimension, and I want everything here to be a reflection of that new dimension. And within that new dimension, and I'm speaking of having some access to 4D and 5D dimension, I had come to see that the Akashic Records, which is a library that records all of the data of our experiences throughout many lifetimes, okay? The Akashic Record is directly connected to the nervous system. When I started to heal my nervous system, it's as if my nervous system are the fiber optics that transmit information into the cloud known as the Akashic Record. So when I started to heal my nervous system, I started to meet deities. And I kept saying to myself, this is a groundbreaking transformational download. When you think about all of the things that we are now learning is toxic for us, you can see why a lot of people are falling into the spiritual trap of spiritual bypassing, which means that that's a term that's new to you. Spiritual bypassing is using spiritual tools and modalities to change things in your life without applying the principles, the mindset, the values, and having daily routines that support you moving in that direction. So let's say goddess energy is something that you have been intrigued by and drawn into. And maybe you're trying to embody these aspects of the goddess realm, but you only spend a few minutes in self-care for yourself, if that, like honestly, because goddesses represent different aspects of self-care. And if you are not taking care of your temple as best as you can, this is not about perfection, but if you're wanting to access goddess information, you have to do goddess activities, and you have to become the vibrational match to that, to access their wisdom, to access their powers. So if your day-to-day life is not lining up, if you're not cleaning up your diet, you're not taking care of yourself, making sure that you get enough rest, at least planning to, doing some research, saying, what do I need to improve this? Like, if you're not doing things to love yourself, heal yourself, care for yourself, then the information about goddesses is just something that is intriguing, maybe entertaining, enjoyable, and maybe you feel like you're actually doing something when you listen to the information, and you are, but you aren't going to get the transformation until you have some tactile things that you can practice and do to be a vibrational match for that. That is an example of spiritual bypassing. Or watching videos about different spiritual powers, hoping that that's going to make you feel less afraid to be your authentic self, but you're not taking a chance and approaching conflict with people in your life to come to a resolution. So you're hoping to have a certain level of self-mastery by just accessing the information, but you don't have anything different that you're actually doing in your life to challenge yourself to be a vibrational match to the information that you're receiving. And when this happens, we start to feel like imposters. That's a great sign. That means that you're dropping into a deeper level of awareness. And so you're starting to see the misalignment. And this is what happened to me. After I came out of religion, then I ended up falling into spiritual bypassing, and I realized I had missed the mark. So this process is not linear. It's very radial. It's a spherical process. When you look at the golden mean ratio, it's spherical, like a conch shell, or the shape that we see certain flowers grow in, or the shape that a hurricane may go in, that spiral. That's the golden mean ratio, or the Fibonacci. Okay, and in that is a sacred geometry of creation. So if you're expecting to have a linear process, and it's not going that way, I'm letting you know now, it's not a linear process. And as I sit here saying this to you, this doesn't mean that I will never revisit certain aspects of this conversation that I'm channeling to you, because it's not linear. So the three main things that I have found to be a solid foundation to build this new version of myself on, that is more healed, more whole, more able to relax and trust the process, that is able to follow my dreams and not have fear of failing, and understand that I never really fail, because each time I fail is proof of an attempt to accomplish something, and I learned something. So those two things are worthy of celebration. And as long as I continue to learn, I'm not taking L's. I'm not losing. I'm not failing. I'm winning because I'm constantly learning from my mistakes. We don't have to get rid of the mistakes. We just benefit more from saying, what did that mistake teach you? And using that to build upon. Okay, so within the model of true ascension, true trauma recovery, beyond this 3D world and its many matrices of getting us separated from our soul and not being able to be our whole self, and losing ourselves in careers and relationships, and identifying ourselves by our bank account and how many likes we get, all of these things, they lead to us being misaligned, afraid to show up, dimming our light, needing other people to validate us. We may turn into someone who has a lot of people-pleasing characteristic or a lot of narcissistic characteristics. But at the end of the day, there are three things that are going to change the outcome. And those three things, number one, is the mind. What is your relationship like with your mind? The nervous system is the information highway, the communication, the interstate between the spirit realm and the physical realm. The mind is the battlefield where those things take a form and collide. They become a thought form and they collide. They become a mindset, meaning you no longer have to think that way to think that way. It is some of the automated responses of the mind, the automated thoughts, the things that you think about on repeat. And they could possibly be things that are not beneficial for you, but you keep thinking them. That's a thought form. It has formed in your mind. It has been there long enough to be a voice that repeats itself. So the mind is the battlefield where these different patterns form. Okay, so this is why working with the mind must be a part of the foundation of someone who really is committed to becoming a better version of themselves. Number two, the body. What's happening with the body? What messages is the body sending? What is your relationship with your body? How do you respond to those messages? Are you the kind of person who feels tension in certain areas of the body and you ignore it? For whatever reason, you ignore it. Maybe you don't have the time. Maybe you don't have the money to go to the doctor or get a massage, whatever it may be. Like, do we ignore symptoms in our body, and why? This helps you to be able to have clarity about your relationship with your body. What do you do every day? How do you treat your body? Are you kind to your body? Do you allow your body to rest when it needs to? Or maybe do you have a job where it doesn't really allow you to self-care the way you need to? that is sending messages to the body. For us women, a really important thing for me was being physically intimate when my body is saying no. That's something I will never do again. But it's something that I did so much, it was automated. I didn't even really need to think about it to do it. I did not consider the way my body was feeling. My only response was performance. As a people pleaser, as a nice girl, I need to make sure I'm catering to my man. I got to show up, even if I don't really feel like it. These are some of the signs of someone whose nervous system isn't regulated, because when your nervous system is regulated, your body sends you messages. It's regulated because you're responding to those messages. So the sympathetic nervous system is like the survival state, the survival mode. And you're either in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So you could be easily triggered, easily angered. How is that affecting your body? You could flee and just go into flight to avoid any type of possible conflict with people. What is that communicating to your body? Is it telling your body that you love your body and you're willing to do whatever it takes to put boundaries around your body in a healthy way, but you're not going to run from your problems? You're going to find a way to address them, right? What is that communicating to your body? What are you putting in your mouth? What are you eating? Is it communicating love to your body? And that doesn't mean that you eat perfectly, because sometimes a cheat day could be my way of giving love to my body by allowing myself to have a day to just enjoy something that I want. So that would be the second main thing, is your relationship with your body. If you do not have a routine in place for high productivity days and low productivity days, because every day will not be the same. But if you don't already know in your mind what that routine is, if you don't already know in your mind the way that you're going to approach conflict resolution, if you don't prepare yourself for these situations, when it happens, it throws you off, and the nervous system is dysregulated on top of already being filled with stress. So now you're in a situation where you're stuck in survival mode, which means that your energy body, your emotional body, your pain body, they're all misaligned with your higher I divine self. So in these moments, you're missing the messages from the spiritual realm to assist you. And when that starts to happen for a certain amount of time, as someone who has an agreement in their soul contract to come here to do this work, you can really get stuck in a dark night of the soul. And this is that aspect of going through this process of awakening, where you realize a lot of different shadow aspects and the patterns, and you start to realize the dynamics in your relationships with people, and maybe some of those dynamics reflect these traumas, and you can't change other people. And if you're afraid of conflict, that puts you in a place of feeling victimized by your situation, and that one thing alone will law of attract more situations into your life to reflect you being a victim and not having any power to change your life. Do you see how deep this is? That's just working with the body. And the third aspect of a firm foundation, where you are actually spiritually ascending and not spiritually bypassing, is the soul. What does your soul sound like? What does it feel like? How do you know when you're having a conversation that's feeding your soul? What does it feel like? How do you know that you're having an interaction with someone that's draining your life force? What does that feel like? Your relationship with your soul is usually communicated to you through the way that you feel. But for so many of us that experience certain traumas and certain periods of negligence, and maybe even just allowing ourselves to be in relationships that we know are toxic to us, that's self-negligence. It's like self-abuse by default, of being accessible by someone who doesn't know how to talk to you or treat you, right? And this is a really common thing. A lot of us have parents like that. It's not personal. It's part of the collective mission our souls have been given. So if you're disconnected from your feelings, maybe your feelings never really matter to other people, and so you made other people's feelings matter more than yours because you go out of your way to make people feel like they are being seen, heard, and loved and accepted. A lot of women fall into this constant 24/7 nurturing, caretaking energy. This is the archetype of the mother, and we fall into that even in our relationships and with our partners. And, as wives, we can fall into playing the role of the mother and caretaking for our men, and especially emotionally, because a lot of men are emotionally stunted. They're emotionally blocked. So we can sometimes start to caretake and become their emotional managers. This is why we curate so well what conversations we have with them and don't have with them. What conversations we have with our girlfriends, sacred sisters when they're around. We will pull back from certain conversations when they walk in the door because we're monitoring their emotional health and we're trying to control the outcome. Okay? So if these things are happening, this means that you disassociate from your body and what your body is communicating to you. So you become disassociated from your soul. And honestly, I have dealt with this, and the reason that I feel lonely is not because I'm disconnected from people. It's because I'm disconnected from my soul. When I start to really spend time by myself as a recovering codependent and learning how to be alone and enjoy that, my soul told me, when you feel lonely, it's because there's a disconnect between you and the soul aspect of who you are, the essence of your being. And sometimes we get lost in our roles. We get lost in the characters that we have to play in our day-to-day life. So this also disconnects us from the soul. Who would have ever thought that awakening means learning the ways in which connection to your soul self is severed and repairing those things? For anybody who's drawn to shadow work, the purpose of shadow work is to bring the patterns that are in the dark that disconnect you from being this higher aspect of yourself to the light. And the shadow isn't the enemy, but the shadow absolutely, just like the wounded inner child, is absolutely how you're going to become whole. Because if you are fragmented and compartmentalized, and these remnants of you that are scattered all over the place are not recalled, then you leave all of them other aspects of yourself in the past. So you're not fully present in the present moment. You're scattered, you're spread thin. And a lot of us feel spread thin right now. If you're listening to me and you feel spread thin right now, comment, I resonate with feeling spread thin. Yeah, I feel like I'm spread too thin. And so this is the soul letting us know You have severed the connection, and I want to connect with you. And you could have 72,000 different ways you connect with your soul. And maybe half of them are blocked and the other half are not. Because we do have periods of noticing synchronicities. This is how the soul communicates to you, through synchronicities. And so that's a good feeling, because you know, oh, okay, there's alignments happening. The universe is mirroring messages back to me to let me know I'm on track. It's a beautiful thing. And again, what conversations, what podcasts, what videos, what content, like what do you do that causes you to feel nurtured, causes your soul to feel fed? Every conversation, every activity doesn't do that. So the more that we are able to hone in on what does and doesn't do that, and start to create routines in our day-to-day life that allow us to connect with our soul on demand, you become more integrated with your authentic self. And everything in our day-to-day life within the 3D matrix has a deeper intention to disconnect us, to keep us disconnected from our soul. If your nervous system isn't regulated, then the messages from your soul are also going to be discombobulated. And this is when we start to say, I need to get a reading. Like I need to look into my life path number. I need to learn something about myself and figure out what's happening with me and figure out what it's going to take to move me into the space that I feel I'm supposed to be in. So working with the mind, the body, and the soul, figuring out where you exactly stand on these spectrums in this conversation, and being able to curate routines that are going to pull the energy back into yourself, reclaim these lost parts of yourself, right? That's going to pull that into your present moment. By being able to do that, this is how you're able to change your life and change the world as a result of that. Who here listening to me feels that they will never like anybody else and they are here to do something helpful? It's probably everybody that is still listening to this video right now. There are many other things that you could be doing, and this is what you're listening to. This is a divine appointment. You can't make this stuff up. And you probably know 9 times out of 10, you would not even be listening to me unless you were led to hear this message. It really works that way. They have an old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So when your nervous system is ready to receive, the teacher is going to appear. And for me, the teacher includes many different things, beginning with my mind, my body, and my soul. They are teaching me. My children, my grandson, they are teaching me. My partner is teaching me. My triggers, they're teaching me. The pain that I experienced and experience is teaching me something. My mistakes, they're teaching me something. As long as I know that I am learning something about myself, I become more empowered to change my life. So, I have a course that has taken me much longer than I expected, because once I started to work with other people within their Akashic records to gather the data, to create something that's going to be transformative it turned into a whole other phoenix rising from the ashes scenario. And the messages that I receive about breaking free of the matrix systems of oppression was to make it simple, to let it take less time, and to be something that most people would be able to actually do. That was my challenge. And I became my own student. The outcome of me accepting that challenge was taking data from the Akashic Library, comparing it to thousands of people that I have worked with one-on-one and in groups to find the common denominator and to build a schedule where you could work through a little bit at a time to get the biggest bang for your buck. If you are someone who has been looking for something that fits into your day-to-day life, and it don't require you to go away on a retreat for a week, a lot of us, that's beautiful to be able to do that, but wouldn't it be great to be able to have transformative experience right at home, right wherever you are? So every single day, I will give you an assignment and something to do. And this is broken down into 13 lessons. And this course right now is going to be on sale because I want to get this in the hands of as many souls as possible, because we are headed to a very chaotic period on the planet. And I know that there are many things that we may feel like are priorities in our lives, but for those of us who are really being called to go on this soul journey and do this work, we can feel that it's time to make a decision. It's time to finally do something different so that we can get a different outcome. If that's you, I'm going to put the link to the course in the description. And along with that course, I'm going to add you to my private group for free. And you will have a private community off of social media where you are interacting with like-minded souls who will support you and celebrate you. And I will also be there to answer questions. Can you imagine finally having somebody to talk to about these things and not feel like you're going crazy? Just that one thing alone for free, it's what I wish I would have had. And I am really honored to be able to give that to you all. Not only that, but you will also receive a huge discount on a spiritual ascension bundle. It's going to contain everything that you need for the course and for sustaining this transformation, because I do not want people to get transformation, experience it for a short period of time, and then it just wanes away. Oftentimes that's what happens to those of us on this journey. So by having the digital tools alongside of physical tools, you're able to traverse all of the different planes of experience that I have talked about in this video to get the desired outcomes. You won't have to go to a lot of different stores to find crystals and incense and Palo Santo and journals and whatever it is, parchment paper, incense, resin, so many different things. I was spending a lot of money and a lot of time looking for everything that I needed, because spiritual hygiene became more important to me once I realized the connection between a spiritual ascension and trauma recovery. And so I wanted to have the tools on hand to work with. So that one thing to go along with the course and a free private community. I mean, everything that I wish I would have had someone help me to be able to accomplish is right there. And that link is going to be in the description.